just feel like maybe I was at the Academy Awards and I missed my cue. I was actually in the restroom, but everyone else before me has given me a lesson, so I also have my tissue here just in case. I'm just so honored to be here this evening in the company of accomplished women and an inspiring group of students who are here, who are and aspire to be leaders. I thank UC Berkeley's Asian Pacific American Leaders for its kind invitation as keynote. I also bring greetings from a dear friend of mine, State Controller John Chung, who was invited but could not be with you in person this evening, but is here with you in spirit. John is addressing a group of Asian Pacific American collegiate leaders at UC Santa Barbara. I spoke with John just a few hours before, and he offers to you that your fullest participation is critical for the progress of not only our communities, but of our state and of our nation, whatever your area of expertise, be it in healthcare, transportation, global warming, and the environment. I had a wonderful conversation with Kevin Lee in advance of this event, and as you know, Kevin is with the class of 2008 and one of the organizers of this celebration. Kevin shared with me that his inspiration for this Asian American Public Leaders Forum in the celebration of Asian American women came from attending an African American student leadership group meeting, and his realization that in spite of the numbers of Asian American students here at this campus, there was no sense of cohesiveness, community, or leadership among the population. He thought further and realized that if students of color worked together, it would serve to advance the entire student population, the campus community, and beyond. I applaud Kevin and other organizers for having insight into the need to build coalitions, not just among the diverse Asian American and Pacific Islander communities, but also among our African American and Latino brothers and sisters. And I welcome their presence here this evening. Kevin asked me to provide some personal insights and stories on the struggles of Asian American women and my beliefs in inspiring a new generation of Asian American women to take leads in public office and business roles. But I will take this a step further and look into building leadership in any career, and indeed in any aspect of life, and working toward being an effective advocate for yourself and others. We've all heard some very touching personal stories, and I just want to emphasize to you that your personal stories really highlight that there is no one way to become a leader, but that each of your personal stories gives you strength to move on into the future. Given my title as API Caucus statewide chair for the California Democratic Party, you might be expecting to hear from a learned and studied political science scholar, or an Asian American studies scholar. And I hate to disappoint you, but I have to confess that I was a pure mathematics and statistics double major while here at Cal. So if you note the title, you'll also maybe realize my age, but it's a notation in old Fortran programming. So it's API for Asian Pacific Islander, the double asterisk for exponential, raised to the power of XX, the chromosomal factor for females. But my academic career, my life experiences since Cal have made me equipped to share some eye-opening anecdotes. From Cal, I earned an MA in Applied Mathematics at UC San Diego, and after 7 years in the actuarial science field, I decided to go to law school at Golden Gate University to carve out a career in public service with a focus on healthcare reform and other public policy matters. But life offered and continues to offer unexpected gifts along the way. And before becoming a full-time attorney, I was a full-time journalist, a sometimes radio and television commentator, and a legislative aide. Today, I've logged in nearly 7 years as a staff counsel for the California Department of Insurance. I still write news stories after doing so for nearly a decade. I'm active in politics and volunteer time in my community, primarily with academic and nonprofit institutions. So just last week I was at a girls' math conference, and I want to offer to you what I offer to them is to remember to always think outside of the box. So this is a good cocktail game for you to bring home with you. And so if you take 3 toothpicks, I would ask you to make an equilateral triangle. Pretty simple, right? I ask you to take 5 toothpicks and make 2 equilateral triangles. Finally, I ask the girls to make 4 equilateral triangles with just 6 toothpicks. So I will let you ponder on that. If I remember at the end, I will tell you the solution, but if I don't, feel free to grab me and I'll let you know. But I want you to remember to think outside of the box. So more recently, I was selected as a California Endowment Health Journalism Fellow last year. And I'm also in my fourth two-year term with the California Democratic Party, with the last 2 terms as statewide API caucus chair and a member of the platform committee, where I work with Nancy Pelosi's daughter, Christine Pelosi, looking into healthcare policy and education policy. I have had 1 up-close and personal conversations with Senator Barack Obama and Senator John Edwards in the last 2 years. More recently, I've had 4 up-close and personal conversations with Senator Hillary Clinton, and now hope to be a health policy advisor or a deputy press secretary for the first woman in the White House. In an October press release, just after her Oakland rally, Senator Clinton welcomed me and San Francisco Assessor Phil Ting into the fold as API co-chairs of her campaign. So, with that backdrop, I share with you the characteristics of an effective leader from the observation of a journalist and a political junkie. One's observations and conclusions are necessarily based on one's background and unique characteristics. I hope from this evening and henceforth, you will know that you have the capacity to leave your own unique contributions and footprint in this life. I am a 4th generation San Franciscan on my mother's side and 2nd generation on my father's side. My father graduated from the Chinese Naval Academy, ultimately serving in Taiwan and leaving the Mao regime behind. He immigrated to the United States in 1959 and earned his, quote, American degree from CAAW in mechanical engineering. He then forged a long-time career with the City and County of San Francisco as one of its engineers for the Department of Public Works, ultimately retiring as Chief Structural Engineering. I lost my father just a few years ago, but I always keep the lessons that I've learned from him very close to my heart. And from my father, I learned to appreciate the perseverance of immigrants and the drive to succeed. Because my father was a public servant and often consulted with various mayors, stories from City Hall abounded at our family dinner table. I say with a straight face that I have followed politics since I was in kindergarten. I was kindergarten and 1st grade classmates with Robin Brown, the 2nd daughter of Willie Lewis Brown Jr., who at the time was just beginning his career in the California Assembly and ultimately became the longest-serving speaker of the California Assembly after 3 decades, and who served as a 2-term mayor of San Francisco. I still chuckle at my application to Cal and my personal statement. Unlike today, where a student applies to a UC school and a separate application is submitted for each campus, when I had applied to the UC system, a prospective student would choose a first choice for a UC campus and a 2nd and 3rd choice in case the student needed to be redirected. I, however, told the UC Admissions Office that I could not be redirected to another UC campus because I intended to run for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors at a future date, and I needed to remain close to my constituency. And lo and behold, Berkeley still admitted me, a bold and brazen, not-so-politic Chinese-American girl from San Francisco's Lowell High School, who happened to be just one of nearly 25% of her graduating class of 825 who went on to Cal. I can safely say that I'm not declaring candidacy for office anytime soon and chalk up any previous delusions to youthful naivete. But I've never lost any zeal for being an observer of human character, particularly those who have achieved notoriety for good or for bad. When I look at the characteristics of some great leaders I have observed, the characteristics transcend gender and ethnicity. I see intellect, integrity, introspection, and I see vision, values, and vulnerability. With these 3 I's and 3 V's, or 3 IVs, I like to say these elements of leaders are intravenously absorbed and become part of one's blood. For intellect, great leaders learn as much as they can about a subject matter, but more importantly, they develop a strong EQ, or emotional quotient, to learn how to effectively work with others. The learning is not just from books, but from experience. And one of my favorite means is actually by observing people that you admire and respect. Knowledge is empowerment. Always remember that knowledge is empowerment. One may have a strong cadre of advisors, but the ultimate responsibility for any decision rests on the shoulders of a leader, a true leader. Integrity. Great leaders conduct themselves with honesty. One's reputation should be guarded and protected. Respect, once lost, is rarely regained. Introspection. Great leaders reflect on their own conduct and actions from time to time to evaluate their performance and to evaluate their impact on others. Great leaders learn from mistakes. Great leaders take corrective action when necessary. An interesting story that I heard recently on the radio was a survey given to Harvard business students. And this question is asked, I believe, of every class. And when they asked the students, what would you do if you found out that a product that you were marketing was injurious or harmful to the community? And believe it or not, that same question was asked of Kenneth Lay of Enron fame. And he actually said, that's not my problem. So I want you to sort of think about what kind of values you hold when you conduct yourself, whether it be in business, politics, or law. So for vision, great leaders have dreams and goals. They do not necessarily have different dreams and goals than followers, but they may have a unique approach or define things differently. Great leaders plan and draft a roadmap before forging a path. Great leaders are also flexible and reevaluate plans. Great leaders create opportunity. We've heard about fighting for the crumbs, but the opportunities really are not finite, so you can create your own opportunity. You can create opportunities for your community. I once worked with an Asian American woman elected official, and her Achilles heel was consistently checking the political winds before making a decision. She didn't set out her own dreams and goals, but let polls make her decisions for her. Not only did her constituents become unhappy, but she was disenchanted with her decisions, misguided on what would make her popular. People respect someone with well-thought-out convictions, even if they don't necessarily agree with particular convictions. But people rarely respect one who tries to please everyone with aimless direction, one who ultimately pleases no one, including oneself. Self-disappointment is deflating and debilitating, and this person is no longer in public office. Values. Great leaders enter into a role with a strong sense of values, knowing right from wrong, respecting others, and playing fair. Great leaders are also able to identify what is personally important, what is important to an endeavor, and what is realistic. Great leaders are not dogmatic ideologues, but never compromise on values to achieve a goal. That kind of achievement is a price too heavy to pay. Vulnerability. Great leaders know their limits, but are willing to also take risks. Great leaders recognize their weaknesses and seek out expertise of those who complement their skills. Great leaders also know when to delegate. Great leaders know when to take risks. Great leaders never recognize full potential until they live outside of their safe zones. And I just want to emphasize to you, John Chung just hammered that into me. And he says, if you tell the students nothing else, I want them to know I expect them to take risks. And I've seen some of our greatest leaders really take some great risks. So these 6 characteristics are individual characteristics or factors found in great leaders or great leadership. And as I've indicated, these characteristics transcend gender and ethnicity. But we do have to explore one's environment and a factor or set of factors that one has less control or sometimes no control over. In order to become an effective leader, one must understand struggles and lessons in history. The struggles of Asian American women who have faced leadership positions and continue to face obstacles, maybe to a lesser degree than in past generations, are the same struggles that all people of color, irrespective of gender, face. These struggles can usually be traced to having to break stereotypes, whether they be positive or negative stereotypes. Stereotypes place people in the confines of a preconceived expectation or ability category. After the Civil Rights Act of 1965 and the recognition that women and people of color had not been afforded the same opportunities as white males, policies were put in place to equal the playing field. Affirmative action, once lauded as a great